Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon. On the show today, we'll get into a little bracketology bubble watch about Texas basketball in the Big 12, what they got to do in their final 5 games of the regular season. We'll talk a little of that. Texas women's basketball gets another win last night. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but they got the win. We'll get into that. Talk a little NBA as NBA action starts back up tonight. The second half of the season starts tonight. We will get into the top contenders, who you got to watch for going into the second half of the season. Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. Texas bringing back a coach. MLB, the first spring training game was today. We'll get a little bit of MLB talk in for you today and some NFL. How about them Cowboys? We'll talk about them as well. Of course, we'll also include your text messages. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number for the Horn. That's where you can reach out and talk to us here at the Horn. I will see those. I try and get to every single one I can, unless you say something crazy that I can't say on the radio. I can't read that. But we try to get to everyone. If anyone you want to have the conversation about any of those topics we're talking about today, or something else I didn't mention, 512-447-3776 is what we say. You guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails. So all of that, lot to get into today. Looking forward to it on a Thursday, getting close. It's National Margarita Day as well. I've already gotten hit up that somebody's going out, and they're going out before me. So I don't know if they're still going to be there, or if I get there, they may be a little tipsy when I get there. But I'm hoping to go check. And if they don't, maybe I'll find some other friends to go celebrate National Margarita Day. I'm a fan of, if you listen to me on Ball Don't Lie, you know that I do appreciate a random holiday. I would make a lot of musical themes out of random holidays. So I am a fan of them. And the National Margarita Day is just a great one because, you don't always have a margarita. It's not one that I always, when I'm going to have dinner, I'm not usually a huge margarita with dinner because the sugar and everything and trying to control what I'm putting in, and then you don't want to start off too hot there, just pounding margaritas, and then the whole night you're just trying to balance it back out. So I don't always drink margaritas when I'm out. I do it with my family. My family makes some good margaritas, so I'll have those, especially go down to the beach, have some margaritas with the family down there. I always enjoy that. And then, if you want to go out, National Margarita Day, perfect excuse. Sometimes I'll make some for around the pool, make a big pitcher or two of margaritas and try and drink through all of them, and by the time you're done drinking them, then you can just pace beer for the rest of the day in the pool, sit on the float. It's real nice. Don't think I'm all high and mighty. It's an above ground pool. It ain't even mine. So don't get I'm not too high and mighty. But that's when you're walking out with 2 pitchers of margaritas that you made the night before, so they're nice cold. When you put them on the rocks, they're still nice and ice cold. That's what you do. I don't know. And you can say on the text line too, if you have the best spot for a margarita, or if you have the best recipe, or if you have, the frozen margaritas are good too. I go on the rocks a lot now. Getting older, I go on the rocks a lot more. But margarita, I go frozen too. Frozen's always a good one too. Have you ever had the frozen Jack and Coke? I'm a fan of the frozen Jack and Coke too. It's a hard one to pull off at home, so I appreciate that. One out there. Getting into some talk, but yeah, if you want to talk margaritas, we can talk margaritas on the text line too. Talking some NCAA basketball and Texas basketball. I was reading an article today. I've looked around, trying to keep up with the bracketology, keep up with the bubble watch for Texas as they lose a game to Houston that they were expected to lose. It's the number 3 team in the country. You're playing on the road in Houston. Then they get a win over K-State. They get that win. They now have a few games left to go. If I can pull my schedule out real quick. They still have a few games left to go. They end up going to Kansas today on Saturday. On Tuesday after that, they're playing Texas Tech on the road. You have an Oklahoma State game the following weekend here in Austin. Then a quick turnaround for a Monday game at Baylor, and then a close out your season on that Saturday, March 9th, with a game against Oklahoma. When I was reading the article on the bubble watch, Texas is not on the bubble as of right now. But there was something in the article that I'm going to get to in just a second that I thought was interesting. And I think it's an interesting point because what they're projecting Texas to do in these last few games is what I think they need to do. But just to give you the quick synopsis, they do have, it's John Gasaway was the one who did the Bubble Watch article. They had Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, Baylor, BYU, and Texas Tech all already pretty much locks in. One of them have to go really, really bad at the end of the season, pretty much lose out for a BYU or Texas Tech to drop completely out of the tournament. They're all pretty securely in right now. And then the should be in are OU, TCU, and UT. And that's where it starts to get a little bit more crowded with OU, TCU, and UT. And then Cincinnati could still fight back into that. If they have a really strong finish, a strong Big 12 tournament, Cincinnati could find themselves trying to fight into that tournament as well. And that's when you look at it. The reality of what Texas is going through right now is they're in a Big 12 conference that is really, really powerful. And they added in a BYU team that is going to be going to the tournament. They added a Houston team that is going to be going to the tournament. So this is a conference now that is boasting a lineup of 8 teams probably getting in. You could get up to 10 Big 12 teams getting in, but Texas needs to find themselves not on the low end of that 9 teams that he thinks should be getting in. Because once you're in that 9 range, and they may want to put one more Big East or one more SEC or one more Big 10 team in to give them 6 or 7 instead of giving Big 12 9, that's where you have to worry a little bit. But the interesting part that I thought when I was reading the article was that basically Texas in the RPI and if you're judging about how they're doing versus the conference and their competition and all of that they're about 500 in the Big 12. If you project them out, they're a 500 Big 12 team, and the Big 12 is so good that Texas is the middle line, and that's how Texas played this season. That they're by far not the worst team in the Big 12, but they're also not the best. They're not by far not the best. And so they're right on that 500 line. And so when you look at those and you look at those numbers and you look at what Texas is right now versus what they need, they're a half game below 500 right now with 5 games to go. They're 6-7 right now. With 5 games to go, when you look at that 500 number, I thought that number was really interesting because that 500 number in conference play is really where I start to think you have to look at and say, if Texas finishes the season 500 in the Big 12, then they'll be ahead of a Oklahoma most likely. They'll probably be around tied or ahead of TCU, and they jump into that conversation of, okay, well, they played well on the road. They weren't home, but that doesn't matter as much. You'd like to be a better home team, but when we're picking for the tournament, none of these games are going to be at home. So maybe you can get a little bit more bias. And to say, if you're 500 in the Big 12, you're better than a lot of teams in a lot of other conferences because they just don't have the amount of talent that the Big 12 has with 9 to 10 teams possibly going to the tournament. Then you have to say that 500. But that's where Texas gets into a little bit of trouble because they're a half game behind 500 right now. We said they had to win all of their home games. That means they have to beat Oklahoma State, who is not very good. They have to beat an Oklahoma team that is decent. They're one of those teams that could get in, but that game at the end of the year could be one of those games that everyone is watching on the bubble for Texas. And so it's a bigger game for Texas now. If they're going to pick Oklahoma or Texas, who's got the better record in conference play and who's got the better record against them? If Texas beats Oklahoma twice and Texas is a 500 team and Oklahoma's below 500, what makes the decision a lot easier? Oh, Texas jumps into that bracket. Texas gets in ahead of Oklahoma, and if they're getting in over Oklahoma, they're getting in over TCU, they're definitely in. So that game becomes big as well. But then you add those 3 road games. And if you win just one, you're a 500 team and 500, and not overall, but 500 in the Big 12. And that should be good enough to get you in. Now, if you get blown out by an Oklahoma State or something like that in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, yeah, you could still have issues again. Someone else can get in. But if you jump up enough that you go 500, I don't think you have to be watching conference championship week, crossing your fingers that enough conference champions don't win, that they get double bids in, and you start taking away spots. You're not on that bubble as much. That's why this weekend is going to be big for Texas once again, because this is the 2 road games where I think you have a pretty decent shot to get a win out of one. And I know Kansas is really good, and I get Texas Tech is good at home. They did just struggle to beat TCU at home, but they got the win. And that's kind of been the antithesis of Texas, that those games, they've been close in some of these games and not close them out. But you're playing a Kansas team that if Texas, and we'll get more into this tomorrow because that's Saturday's game, But there's a Kansas team that is not super physical, that doesn't necessarily handle good, solid physical defense. If you can go do that to them, if you can rebound, if you can bring that extra effort and get pumped up, it's a tall ask. They have not lost at home this season. They don't plan on losing at home this season. So that's a tall ask. But you need to go out there and put your best effort because they're not an invincible Kansas team. This isn't the best Kansas team they've had in the last few years. They're a couple pieces short, and a lot of those guys are not performing at high levels each and every week. And again, that's partly because of the Big 12. And then you have a Texas Tech team that beats you here at home, that you know that you have more talent on your roster probably than Texas Tech does, but that talent doesn't fit up and necessarily merge together the way that Texas Tech's lineup works together. Texas Tech has a little bit more rough and tumble guys that want to go in there and get dirty and get the big plays. That could be the problem. If Texas wants to go compete with Texas Tech, and if you get one win out of that, then you're in the driver's seat. Win your home games, go to Baylor and hope to get a win there, but you're in the driver's seat to get into the tournament. And so I just thought it was interesting to see in that article from John Gassaway today that 500, he talked about that their ranking basically sits them around 500 of what they project them as 500 in the Big 12, and that's good enough. But they're still a half game behind 500. If they drop all three road games, even if they win their last two, they finish out 2 games behind first place, and that's not where, or 2 games 500, and that's not where you want to be. Also, I think if they finish 500, they do fall in that 8 seed spot where you want to be. 8 seed is going to be a lot better than 9th or 10th because then you're really on the bubble watch. So I think that 8 seed is where you like to be. All you got to do is finish 500. All hope is not lost, and then you get in that tournament, and you get out of Big 12. You get to play some different styles of basketball, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. They did pretty well against it last year, and if it wasn't for Miami shooting lights out from 3, they could have gone further in that. And if it wasn't for Dylan Dessou, one of their best players getting hurt, they definitely would have moved on because they were hanging with Miami without Dylan Dessou. So, this is a team that, once you get in the tournament, depending on matchups, now you could get a terrible matchup, the second game, and it's over. There's more bad matchups than goods for the Longhorns probably, but it is open. It is a thing that it's a possibility. Just something fun that I was looking at this morning, seeing the bubble watch, and it's good to see Texas is not fully on there. Earlier in the season, they were on that bubble watch. They were one of those teams that people were saying probably wasn't going to get in. They've improved since then, since they changed the starting lineup, since they went smaller instead of bigger. That fixed it. Kendall Weaver coming into the lineup has helped as well. Help their RPI, their ROI, and all of that stuff to get them to a 500 team. They're half a game behind. All you got to do, win 3 out of 2 in your last, or 3 out of 5 in your last games, and I think you're pretty much a lock to get in. You're not going to be sweating it too much on tournament selection Sunday. We should also mention women's basketball last night gets a 77-72 win over Texas Tech. A good win for the Texas team. We saw Vic Schaefer come out afterwards. He was not happy with the team, even in a win. He said it was ugly, but it's still a win's a win. You'd rather have an ugly win than an ugly loss. But a lot of game film that they still need to watch to get better. Madison Booker did not have one of her best games, but she did come in clutch, 10 for 10 at the free throw line. So she was able to help out there. Taylor Jones led the way, 19 points. But the reality was they shot really bad from 3. They shot 25% from the 3-point line. That did not help them out at all. They out-rebounded Texas Tech, and they went in the paint 34. They went in the paint, got some points. They also shot a lot more free throws, got into foul trouble, got the effort to go in and get some free throws. They shot 34 free throws to just 11 for Tech. That is a big piece for any team trying to be as good as Texas is at the women's basketball team. You have to use everything that's at your disposal to get a win. They were able to get that done and get the win, keeping their hopes alive of possibly getting a 1 seed in the tournament, trying to jump up in that top 4 and that 1 seed. They keep it alive with a win over Texas Tech last night. Text line's open, 512-447-3776 if you want to jump in on the conversation. We'll get to those in a minute. I do want to talk some NBA with you guys, though. Because the second part of the season is opening up. I know we're technically kind of halfway through it. We've already had the in-season tournament. We know the winner of the in-season tournament is now not performing at the level that they should be. We'll get into the games that are happening tonight because, of course, I'll be watching some basketball tonight. You know that. But I wanted to give you some look at the top contenders. We looked yesterday at coaches on the hot seat. Teams build. They're kind of in the flux of rebuilds, and are they going to have to tear it down? Do they have to change their approach? We talked about that yesterday. So you can go to the podcast page if you want to get into that. But we want to talk about the teams right now that are real contenders. And I've broken them down into 3 sections. And I've broken them down to top contenders, people that really you feel like they could make a run, and you really give high hopes that if you're betting on these are the top teams, I got 3 from the East, 3 from the West, that if you want to say these are the teams that have the best chance to get in to win an NBA championship, this 6 teams are probably the top best 6 teams. And then you have if they get hot, the teams that maybe they got a shot, they have enough talent on their roster, but they have to get hot. And the third is the wild card, where something's going to have to change for that team to be able to get there. But we've seen crazier things happen. So we'll start out in the Eastern Conference with our top contenders. Of course, Boston right now is dominating. They're 43-12 on the season, best record in the NBA right now. I know the Bucks were there; they have dropped off considerably. Since Doc Rivers has taken over, and Doc's getting a lot of flack for it right now, and the Bucks are getting a lot of flack for it, but and Doc is giving the Bucks flack for it. It's a crazy cycle. But Boston right now playing really, really good basketball. The question is, once they get to the playoffs, is Jason Tatum going to continue to put on his MVP performance he's put on this season? Are the Celtics going to be able to be hard-nosed enough? Is Porzingis going to be healthy enough? Are they going to be able to go into the playoffs and play at a very high level, which they would like to play at? That's kind of the question, because we know that last season they looked like they disappeared in the playoffs. They wanted to add some size with Kristaps Porzingis. They wanted to add some defense with Drew Holiday. They've added some pieces to that team. They're the number 1 team in the NBA right now, but that's kind of your front runner. If you go over to the West, the team you have to put up, I know they're in 4th place right now in the West, but they still are until they lose and until somebody knocks Jokic off. The Nuggets right now at 36-19 are the team that I think in the West are the team to beat in the West. There are some teams doing really well, but until you show me in a 7-game series you can beat Jokic and you can beat Murray and you can beat that Denver team that has it going for them. They didn't lose a lot. Bruce Brown is a loss, but they've got some players on that team. Until you can beat the MVP, you can beat the defending champ, that guy's going to still be there. Then we can look down in the Eastern Conference, that 2 teams that are right there competing, the Knicks and the Bucks. The Knicks are in right now in 4th place, 33-22. The Bucks are 35-21 after that deep stretch, but they're still 3rd in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks are, once they get healthy, OG Anunoby had to get surgery, but that addition of OG Anunoby, Randall is a little hurt right now. When he comes back, when they get back to full strength, Jalen Brunson is leading a team that has a lot of talent and good defense. They can score, they can play defense, they can be tough in the paint. All of those pieces make you believe that there's a team that they're not the front runner, but man, they could put up a fight. And of course, we know Giannis and Dame Lillard, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, that team in Milwaukee, they can do special things. They were doing really well, but they weren't the best team in the East, and they fired their coach because they expect more out of that team. They expect some more defense. That's where the real problem lies. If they can play enough defense and are not just an offensive powerhouse and not relying on Dame Lillard to hit 10 threes a game to win in the playoffs, then they have a shot. If they can start to figure that out. But Doc Rivers, since he's been there, it has not happened. So they will have to figure out those issues, figure out those problems to keep it going in Milwaukee. Over in the West, 2 other teams that look really good for them. Currently in 1st place, the Minnesota Timberwolves are 39-16. As much as they were made fun of last season for that trading for Rudy Gobert, and everybody got on them, now that adding Karl Anthony Towns back in that lineup after the injuries that he had last season, they have meshed really well with an offseason together. That Karl Anthony Towns shooting really well, and the fact that he doesn't have to play in the post as much is opening him up to play some other games. He's not necessarily the fixer for everything, but he is doing a lot better this season. He's healthier, and he doesn't have to be that center presence that he never wanted to be. Even though he's 6'11", 7 foot, he can step outside. He's hitting those shots. It makes a huge mismatch for most teams that barely have one center. Now you got to have 2 or 3 guys that can play big against them. And then you also throw in Anthony Edwards, who's just an X factor, can go. He's there. I don't know if they have the championship pedigree yet, but they have a lot of talent. If they're healthy and playing well at the end of the season, they're definitely a contender. They do have people that can go up there and bounce with Jokic, which is one of those things you have to worry about. They have a Rudy Gobert. They have a Karl Anthony Towns. They got, just a number of guys on that team who can go and at least bump with him and make him step off of the line. And Gobert, former Defensive Player of the Year, he's lost a step, but he can still get out there and try and go out there. Jokic may make a fool out of him, or Gobert may make a season for the Timberwolves. The Clippers, too. As much as the Westbrook signing, trading for James Harden, everybody was a little piece off. That's a team that nobody wants to meet in a 7-game series. They're healthy. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are two of the best two-way players in the NBA. And then you add in a James Harden who can always score, get to the free throw line, give you points every night. And Russell Westbrook, he's starting, but he is leading up that second unit too, that there's so much energy in that second unit because of Russell Westbrook. Not a lot of people want to play them in a 7-game lineup. Who knows? They also have a little championship pedigree with Kawhi Leonard, who's won 2. He knows what it takes to get there, and Ty Lue knows what he's doing as a coach as well. It's an interesting team there in the Clippers. All those guys have the talent. They have enough people on there that know what they're doing to win, so all of those to look out for. Here's the next category. If they get hot, we'll start over in the West this time. If they get hot, the second seed in the conference, I don't want to disrespect them. Oklahoma City, they're really, really young. The Thunder's a great, talented team. The question is, can they hold it together for the rest of the season? If the Thunder can hold it together, then that's a team that, maybe if you get hot at the right time, you go in there and play with enough bravado that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that, that people don't think that you're necessarily got the experience to go do it. Who knows what you go accomplish? But they're young. So this could all fall apart when they start playing against veterans and when they get down and the press starts to get on them more. They've been under the radar. When they start to be the favorites, does it affect them differently? Does Jalen Williams, who's been having a breakout season, does he continue to play at the high level against the highest competitions? Those are questions there. We have the 5th place Suns right now. It's a good team, but defensively, there's a lot of holes. Health-wise, there's a lot of issues. I'm a huge Devin Booker fan. Of course, I love Kevin Durant. They have a lot of talent on that team. They've added some other pieces, too, out of the buyout market. It's a decent team there in Phoenix. But, if you go against some people who can put up points with you and you're trying to outscore them every night, if you miss, that's a crapshoot in the playoffs. And finally, I got the 7th place Mavs. Look, I could have put them in the wild card, but we know with Kyrie and Luka, if PJ Washington, if Daniel Gafford, if that experiment works out, and they can get those guys to play defense, no one wants to play Luka in the playoffs. No one wants to play Kyrie Irving in the playoffs. We know that. So they're in that. If they get hot, those guys are both putting up 35, 40 a night. It becomes real hard to compete with the Mavericks team that just can go. So if they're healthy and they're going, they have some other pieces. They're right on that edge. They're my 6th team, but I've got them in there. Over in the East, if they get hot, the 2nd place Cavs, kind of the same story as the Thunder. There's some holes about like an Evan Mobley not being able to score. Can you match them up and take it out of them? Where Jared Allen has been playing really well, but once you start to match up with Mobley and Jared Allen and try and force Mobley to be the offensive weapon and force some guys that aren't the offensive weapon to be there, does the team stick together as a young team or do they start to fall apart? They're 2nd place in the East right now, but once they get a little bit more on that radar in the playoffs at the end, are they going to be able to compete at that high level? They're the same as the Thunder. Both those teams are way, way under the radar, even though they're in 2nd place in their conferences. But once they are not behind the camera, once they're front and center and everybody in the NBA, can they keep that production up? That's what you always have to worry about with a young team like that. 5th place, I got the 5th place team, the 76ers. They're a good team. Joel Embiid is out till the end of the season. Can they hold it together, keep themselves out of the play-in, and can he come back at the end of the season and be the same player? If he can, then of course they got a shot. He's been a dynamic. Now, we know that they didn't perform last year. Doc Rivers is not there anymore. Can Joel Embiid step up in the playoffs? Hopefully he'll be back and feeling better and rested and healthy and be able to go make a name in the playoffs. And then the Pacers. A lot of talent. A lot of people. They traded for Pascal Siakam. Tyrese Halliburton, if he gets going, if he gets hot, who knows what the Pacers can do. It's an uphill battle for them, but they have a chance. And, if you get guys, they have 2 or 3 guys on that team that if they get hot, it's over. And that's what you need to do. They went up in the in-season tournament. They were going up against the Lakers. They cooled off in that last game. Lakers went ahead and win it. And let's go wild card. There's only one team in the East of the wild card. It's the Miami Heat. The Pat Riley teams, the Eric Spoelstra teams, Jimmy Butler, you can't count them out. They haven't been great, but they've been much better than, if you look at that roster, they're better than what that roster really looks like on paper. And so you don't know. If the right things happen, there's some other injuries. Guys don't come back in full shape. The Miami Heat can make a run. I don't know if they have enough to win it, but they could always make a run. That's what those Miami Heat teams do. And then a bunch of teams in the West jump in that wild card category. The Pelicans and the Kings, they just don't seem to have enough to get over that hump. They don't have that star player to get them over that hump and win them the series. They're both good teams, but they feel like they're just a player short or, just one player stepping up short in both those. And then you have the Lakers and the Warriors. And how do you take LeBron or Steph Curry and say they don't have any shot at the title? It doesn't seem like they do. I wouldn't bet on them. But at the same point, that's an interesting look. It's an interesting look. I'll tell you what, we'll push back because it won't take long. We'll talk about the matchups tonight here in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll talk about it maybe next break too. But I do want to get to the big fat poll of the day, get you guys involved on the text line as well. So let's hit that.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today, 512-447-3776. We asked you yesterday who will be the second Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft. Not much different today, but I make it a little harder for you. Who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? So a lot of you said Byron Mitchell's first, Adonai Mitchell. We did have a couple changes for A.D. Mitchell. We said some said it was, A.D. Mitchell. Look, we had a couple other picks, so maybe he's your third pick. But who do you think will be the third pick? Extra credit to tell me where he's going and when he's going. Throw that in there as well. Who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? Let me know on the text line, 512-447-3776. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to a Hook 'em Up replay. Keep the show rolling here on the Sports Complex. Back on the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon. Feeling good on National Margarita Day. Got me at 2 hours before I can go indulge in a margarita. I hope you're getting to indulge in one now. Text line's open 512-447-3776. You want to talk some NBA? We just talked about the contenders for the NBA and real contenders and wild cards and all of that. Talk some Texas bracketology as well. In the big fat poll today, who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? Extra credit if you want to tell me when the pick will happen and where you think they're going to go. Text that in 512-447-3776. Do want to get to a hook 'em up replay here. Guys talking about some sound from Antonio Pierce and from Justin Fields. Some stuff we talked about yesterday, but some different stuff from the Justin Fields interview as well. So it's a hook 'em up replay here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, hornfm.com.
All right, welcome back to the rant of the day. We got a couple of NFL stories that we're going to get into a little bit here in Raj Rant of the Day. And my man Brock is stepping in for Ty, so we'll get some of the audio here in just a second. But the NFL right now, there's a lot of random stories that I want to get to. One of them is about Justin Fields. Apparently, Justin Fields unfollowed the Chicago Bears, and when he unfollowed the Chicago Bears, it became a big deal because on Instagram he also started following some players from Atlanta, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, and that caused some controversy. So we'll hear from Justin Fields, who had to set the record straight about why he decided to follow those guys and why he not only unfollowed the Bears as an organization, but he also unfollowed the NFL. And apparently he's got a good reason for that. So we'll get into that audio too. And there's also the Antonio Pierce sound, which is making the rounds. And there's even talk that some saying, I heard Pro Football Talk say this, that he believes that the NFL should step in. Because if you're going to have Jordan rules type the mentality, then potentially you're endangering quarterbacks, or you got the at least the mentality to go after quarterbacks and try to do them harm. So we'll hear from him. We'll hear from him in that sound too. So we'll get to all of that. I just sent it to my man Brock. Okay, real quick, just so Brock can get caught up. We didn't get to this in behind the burn orange curtain, but it's interesting. We can get to it in Raj Round today with Chris Gilbert coming back to the fold for the Longhorns as now the special assistant. There was some talk reportedly that he was going to be in as the assistant general manager. It was reported by Football Scoop at first. That was not going to be the case. He's going to be the special assistant to the head coach. Initially, Chris Gilbert was with Texas, working with their he's the director of high school relations, I believe, was his initial title. Went to North Texas to be a tight ends coach at North Texas, and now is coming back to Texas. And by the way, this was considered now say a shock, but it was a surprise to a lot of folks on the inside and insiders, because there was no talk that Chris Gilbert was going to come back, which means maybe he reached out to Sark in Texas about coming back, but it would seem that either way, Sark enjoys him being on the staff. I think his initial title as Director of High School Relations gives you a hint as to his biggest asset. He's a made man in the DFW area. DFW is top 3 in the country, metro areas for producing NFL talent per capita. So that guy can get into almost any high school and open any door in that DFW area because of his accomplishments and achievements at Lancaster, winning a lot of games and winning championships. So that's the biggest asset, but I think there's potential that he could be groomed for promotion in some area here at Texas, maybe in their newly designed front office with Brandon Harris as the GM, or maybe it's at a position coach job in the future if Texas has one of those open up. And it seems like the last couple of years, Sark's done such a good job. He's already had, coaches like Brennan Marion move on. Stan Drayton has moved on. Jeff Choate has moved on. It seems like more and more he actually parted ways and brought in Chris Jackson, new wide receivers coach. There may be room for a new position coach, and if you trust and like, and you believe that Chris Gilbert is an asset, especially in recruiting, maybe he can be one of those guys who groom for a potential position coach job. That's just my theory. I've not heard that from anybody. That is not necessarily a breaking news or anything. That's just my theory as to what may be going down. All right, so let's get to this NFL sound real quick. Hey, Brock, could you please pull up the first piece of sound I want to get to is the Antonio Pierce sound. So Antonio Pierce was on the Rush with Max podcast simulcast, and he was talking about their victory over the Chiefs. Remember, they actually beat the Chiefs this year late in the season. There was some arguments to be made. Chiefs didn't really care about that game because they were worried more about the postseason at that point. But the Chiefs have dominated that division. They have dominated the AFC West. Even prior to Patrick Mahomes becoming the starting quarterback, they dominated that division with Alex Smith. That is Andy Reid's division. Everybody in that division should be paying rent to the Kansas City Chiefs because they do own it. But they have had an arms race as of late, especially with the head coaching carousel in that AFC West. You got Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos. Now you got Jim Harbaugh with the San Diego Chargers. And I think Antonio Pierce may be feeling a little bit maybe inadequate. Maybe he's a little bit insecure being in the division with all these coaching potential Hall of Famers and Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. And then you got a guy like, Andy Reid, who's now in the GOAT conversation. But here is Antonio Pierce saying how they're going to approach the Raiders, how they're going to approach defending and trying to neutralize and topple Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
And then we went into, you got the Jordan rules, and I'm calling now from now on, as long as I'm here, the Patrick Mahomes rules. So you remember when Jordan was going through it with the Pistons, all those guys in the 80s before he came Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, the Pistons used to whoop his. Anytime he came to the hole, elbows, feeling them, love taps. We touched them. We in the head, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'm touching you. So I showed those guys Jordan getting his whooped. And then we went into.
All right, so there you go. The Patrick Mahomes rules now officially, they're out there. I'm sure teams had their own game plans of how they wanted to defend Patrick Mahomes. But Antonio Pierce is letting it be known. And he's saying they got proof of concept because it worked already once against Patrick Mahomes and they beat him. That may very well be the case, but this is probably more likely to end up as bulletin board material against the best quarterback in the NFL rather than a blueprint for how to beat him. But I'll give Antonio Pierce a lot of credit. He's got scones the size of smart cars because why would you want to give the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes any more motivation? So maybe he does have the blueprint, but, the NFL is going to have something to say about it if they start, banging around Patrick Mahomes and roughing him up. The NFL they're not going to stand for that either. Maybe the Raiders will do it in a way that they can do it within the rules, but usually that is something open for interpretation. What is roughing the passer? What's unsportsmanlike conduct? We've seen that. We've seen a lot of those this past season where a lot of people disagreed with the call that it was roughing the passer or it was an unsportsmanlike conduct, and yet we know there are different rules for quarterbacks. So hopefully he accounted for that in his Mahomes rules take. But there you go, Antonio Pierce. It's a bold move.
Yeah, he is the
bold strategy.
He's the one. What is it? One of these things is not like the other, right? In that division, you have Jim Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, all arguably Hall of Fame coaches.
Yeah.
He's new, but he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. There's no doubt about it. He brings an attitude, and who loves that is the Raider fans. And the Raider fans love that mindset.
That's a good point. Yeah,
Renegade, Al Davis, the old school.
That is true. They do that. That goes back to it. Yeah, going against the grain. So hopefully it works out for him. But man, like I said, Patrick Mahomes has basically dominated that division, and even before him, Kansas City was dominating that division. All right, let's hear from Justin Fields. So Justin Fields also in the news. There's talk that the Bears are going to move on from Justin Fields, that they're going to trade him as soon as they draft Caleb Williams, or even before that, they're going to trade him. There are lots of teams that should be interested. Steelers should be interested. The Falcons should be interested. You got the Patriots out there potentially. There are a lot of teams that may be interested in Justin Fields. Recently, he unfollowed the Bears on Instagram and started following different players from the Atlanta Falcons: Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London. He was asked about this on the St. Brown Brothers podcast. And here is the response from Justin Fields as to why he unfollowed his own team on social media.
Since we're here, hold on.
But we're not comparing.
No. Since we're here,
all right, come on.
What's with the unfollow with the Bears? What's up with that?
Man, bro, I'm glad we're talking about it because why do people take social media so serious? Like,
But like, why you unfollowing the Bears?
Like, I still mess with the Bears. It's not, I'm just trying to take a little break. I unfollow the Bears and the NFL, bro. I'm not just trying to have football on my timeline. Like, I know y'all mess with a girl, EQ, especially you. Just because you don't follow the girl on IG don't mean you're not messing with her.
That's true. That's true. That's facts. That's fact.
Oh, so you're saying you mess with the Bears more now that you unfollow them?
Man, it's not even like that.
All right, so that's enough of it. Basically, he unfollowed the Bears, unfollowed the NFL, said he just don't want football on his timeline. I get that. That's a decent excuse. I don't know if we believe it. I don't know if anybody's buying it. So maybe he shouldn't be selling it, but that's his reasoning. That's his rationale. He also, and this is why I think Justin Fields is now just playing mind games. He's either trolling everybody, playing mind games, or maybe he's playing chess while everybody's playing checkers. And maybe his agent is advising him to do this kind of stuff. He also gave some love to the Steelers in this very same interview, kind of add fuel to the fire. He says his favorite non-home stadium is where the Steelers play. Here's the audio.
You got a lot of them on your team.
Yeah, Pittsburgh
was
was lit too. Just with the terrible times, my rookie year, it was lit over there too.
You got a lot.
All right, so there he is saying that the Steelers are one of the teams, that basically he likes playing at. He likes playing in their home stadium. Maybe he's heard, not maybe, I'm sure that he's heard the rumors and seen on social media that the Steelers are or should be interested in him. So he's throwing a little bit of fuel on that fire. He's throwing a little bit of gasoline on that one. And this may be probably the biggest indicator or the best proof that he is no longer going to be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears going forward. There was a LeBron MJ debate happening on this St. Brown Brothers podcast. Justin Fields weighed in on the MJ LeBron debate, and the starting quarterback currently of the Chicago Bears said he likes LeBron. Here's the audio.
I'm out of this.
on here, bro.
I like LeBron. I like LeBron.
Me too. I like LeBron too. I'm out of this. I'm out of this.
All right. The I like LeBron guy. Thank you very much, Brock. I appreciate that. The I like LeBron guy. That is Justin Fields, ladies and gentlemen. That is the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears, in blasphemous fashion, saying that he prefers LeBron over Chicago legend and saint, who has a statue out there in Chicago, which I'm sure he drives by all the time in front of that arena. He said he prefers LeBron over MJ. That, to me, going forward, best proof, best indicator that he will no longer be the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears, because the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears can't take LeBron over MJ, or at least not admit it publicly, unless, like you said, in the future, you're not going to be in Chicago, because you lost all street cred. And you lost a whole lot of points with any fans you may have by saying you take LeBron. And now, by the way, I'm not saying you can't take LeBron over MJ, but you can't say that if you're the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
You can't say that.
Yeah, he might be showing up at that Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant.
Oh,
event.
that tell it all
the Tell It All tour, the No Bull tour.
The No Bull tour.
Yeah.
Maybe he's going to be on that because, you can't be hating on MJ in MJ's town.
Well, I mean, I think we're all pretty clear. They're going to take Caleb Williams. They're going to trade Justin Fields.
Yeah.
So I think, part of it, if he were a free agent or something and he unfollowed the Bears, that'd be to me a bigger deal. The fact that he doesn't really control this thing, and I think the hay's in the barn on that decision.
Could be.
They're just going to everything they're going to say between now and April is to drive up the value. Like, oh no, we might keep them. We can keep them both. We might keep them both. You'll hear stuff like that, right?
Yes.
They're going to talk out of both sides of their mouth.
That is true.
They're just trying to drive the value up, and they would like to see Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and some other teams bidding for him, so they can drive up the trade value.
So maybe they're working with Justin Fields. Maybe this is a collaboration. You know what I mean? And the
I
Bears
don't think the Bears
no.
are that smart.
Yeah, they probably are. His agent is probably,
Yeah.
but not the Bears.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
Good stuff there from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rob B. Weekday morning 6 to 11 right here on the Horn. If you didn't think that Antonio Pierce was the right pick for the Raiders head coaching job, that audio will make you think, man, that guy is a Raider, isn't he? Al Davis would be proud. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will get back on the text line, 512-447-3776. You want to talk Texas basketball, NBA basketball? You want to talk about the big fat poll today? Who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? I saw one. If you want to talk something else, I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can talk about here. We're going to get some NFL talk, some college football talk, and some baseball talk as well in the 5 o'clock. So if you got any opinions on that, you can text those in as well. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. So keep those texts rolling in. We'll get to those when we come back here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon here on the Horn. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. Whatever you guys want to talk about. Big fat poll of the day. Who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? We know Byron Murphy is projected first. We know Adonai Mitchell is projected second. Not first overall and second overall, but as Longhorns, that's projections. That's what a lot of you guys were saying yesterday when you asked you who the second Longhorn drafted was going to be. So we were asking you now about the third. Keep going down the line. We'll keep figuring it out and see who you think will be the third. If you want to give extra credit, tell me when and where they will be picked. And that will be a fun little exercise for you guys if you can figure it out, because we're saying, and you can say it's AD Mitchell, and then you say, well, because this guy's going first, second, third. If you want to give all the details, I know sometimes it's hard for you guys to text while you're driving, and I appreciate you jumping on the conversation. I know some of you just not texters either. It's all good. It's all good. Appreciate having you on the show. Let's get to the text line, though. I like Jimmy the Gringo says, good afternoon, Patrick. Getting a little worn out from the Cowboys, Texans, UT basketball, UT football, draft, and all the other talk. Any chance we could throw some WWE news in there? Who do you got? WrestleMania, Cody Rhodes, or Roman Reigns? I appreciate what you do, Jimmy the Gringo. I appreciate what you do, texting in Jimmy the Gringo. I am a wrestling fan. I do not keep up with it at all as much as I used to. It makes it much harder. And then doing this job, being, talking about sports, you just watch a ton more sports. If you get behind a couple days, and there's so much wrestling now. It was a lot easier to watch wrestling when it was like, okay, it's 2 hours on Monday. It's like 2 hours on Thursday. And then that's all I got to watch. It was a lot easier then. And now it's all the time. It's on nonstop. And you got the Peacock. It can be on there, but it's a little bit harder for me to watch. I do love the storyline that they brought back, that The Rock came back and everyone got pissed off because they took over with the thing that all the wrestling fans wanted in Cody Rhodes. And so they fought back, and now The Rock's a bad guy. And it seems very, very entertaining. I have not given it too much thought. If I had to guess, then Roman Reigns is going to win because there's wrestling fans, even though Vince McMahon's not there anymore, they love pissing off their fans the most. It's one of their favorite things to do in wrestling. So that would be my guess. But that's just me. That's it's too far away. It's still what, a month away? WrestleMania? I think the Elimination Chamber in Australia is this weekend. I think. I mean, it could be way off on that, but I don't. That's as much as I can give you, Jimmy. That's as much as I can give you. I hope that was enough for you. We're going back into the NFL in the 5 o'clock. My man Father Rhymes says, "Go Heat." I know he is a big Heat fan. I think we actually watched one of the Heat playoff games together last year too. Look, and I said this earlier, when you put them in as a wild card in the East, once you get past the Pacers, it's really kind of slim pickings of teams that you don't feel are going to really have any shot to compete. They just don't have the talent. The Heat just are the Heat, though. They don't have the talent to compete, but that doesn't ever stop them. Tyler Hero continues to, improve and show. I don't know if he's ever going to be the 30 points a game player they kind of need him to be. But they've done crazier come-ups in the playoffs, and all it takes is, the right injury, the right place. I don't think if everybody's healthy, they have much of a shot. But without that, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Texter says, it feels like the NBA season is finally starting much earlier than usual feeling. Look, I've been watching all season. I've been enjoying it, especially because I'm a Spurs fan. So watching Wemby all season, watching Victor Wembanyama, who's even though he's not, I'm not saying statistically and overall he's been the greatest rookie ever, because he hasn't, I don't think. I think, Wes Unseld Jr. was the one who won MVP and Rookie of the Year the same year. He's the only guy who ever did it. I think that's the right name. But he's not that. He's not, he didn't even make the All-Star team. I know he would have liked to. But when you just watch the stuff he does, it's just so entertaining to watch a guy that, the memes going around right now that he's doing the Space Jam, dunking over a guy from too far away, and just every time he'll make a move to the basket and you don't think it can work, and it does, or he takes a step back three and you're like, no one's this 7'5" should be able to hit a step back three with that amount of grace and ease. There's all this stuff he does in blocking shots. He's just so much fun to watch that for a Spurs fan who has been kind of struggling the last few years to find things enjoyable to watch, watching Victor has been a very fun time for me to watch. Dexter says, Xavier Worthy, 30 seconds. So I guess you're saying Adonai Mitchell already gone, Byron Murphy already gone. But 30 seconds of the Chiefs, they fall in love with this 4.240 time at the Combine. That's Combine's coming up next week too, I believe, or late next week. start to get into those combine. I think that Saturday, next Saturday, is when they're just going to have so many offensive players. That's going to be one of those. If you're a combine guy, that's to sit at home all day and enjoy yourself just staring at top peak athletes going in and running 40s and doing all those drills. I think it's going to be an offensive, a ton of offense is projected, scheduled for a Saturday at the combine. But yeah, if he gets a high one, he definitely could climb back up in there. And the Chiefs are one of those teams that goes and tries to find that value pick. I've seen Adonai Mitchell to them as well. They could definitely go for one of those Texas wide receivers and say, we like what Sark did. We like what these guys are. And they feel like they're going to be culture fits for the Chiefs too, coming from Texas. So I could definitely see that. And R-Dub, my man R-Dub says, who are we hating on today? Embrace the hate. I'm not hating on anybody. Not me. You just positivity. It's National Margarita Day, R-Dub. Drink a margarita and just embrace the love and the warmth of some warm tequila. It's just down, making your stomach feel all warm, and you warm you up deep in the cockles of your heart when you drink that margarita. Enjoy yourself. No need to hate today on National Margarita Day. We don't need to do that. We're no hating the 5 o'clock either. We'll talk some Texas football. We'll get into a little baseball. I haven't talked much baseball yet this season. Giving you a little bit of what to look for as the spring training begins. The games begin for baseball. What to look for with the Astros and the Rangers. A little early outlook before we start to get too much, before we have news coming in from them. We'll give you that, and we'll talk a little NFL as well. Cowboys, who they should be looking for in free agency. Some names that if Jerry's going all in, these are names he's got to look at least. You got to look, Jerry. Get to those when we come back on the Sports Complex. The Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 on the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon here on the Horn. We've already talked some bracketology, bubble watch for Texas basketball. Texas women's basketball getting the win over Texas Tech last night, 77-72. Your top contenders in the NBA. We'll get to this hour. We'll get into some free agent pickups for the Cowboys that they could be interested in if they want to go all in, like Jerry said. Talk a little bit about Texas and the coach they've just brought back. And baseball, MLB, spring training is back. We will get into a little bit of the top storyline, I feel, for both the Rangers and the Astros. And, of course, your text messages asking you, big fat poll of the day today on the text line, 512-447-3776. Big fat poll of the day today. Who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? We've asked you who the second was yesterday, and a lot of you went with that A.D. Mitchell. If we look at most mock drafts, those would be the two first round picks in most mock drafts. It's Byron Murphy and A.D. Mitchell. So then who would be your third Longhorn? If you want to give extra credit, tell me when and what team picks them as the third Longhorn. And it could be A.D. Mitchell. It could be, Tavondre Sweat. It could be J.T. Sanders. It could be Jonathan Brooks. All options that Xavier Worthy is definitely up there. He already had an Xavier Worthy. Those are all very big options. I don't think Byron Murphy would slip to third. He seems to be the first or second Longhorn taken most likely. But those, J.T. Sanders, we've talked about that, if Brock Bowers goes early, and someone really was looking tight end, he may climb up on that first round. Tavondre Sweat is somebody that I think a lot of teams are going to talk down kind of and not really talk much about because they want him to slip because some projections have him going down. I could see somebody looking at him and say, why is he not ranked higher? Let's go get that guy. You could see Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, depending on the 40 times what they do at the combine. Maybe somebody says, wow, we need to get this speed for us in the NFL. Having guys like Deshaun, like having guys like Tank Dell, having smaller guys that are having a huge amount of impact in the NFL right now, and people from Sark's coaching tree that are coming in the NFL, those people, maybe he will get, maybe Xavier Worthy moves up on some boards and gets that third pick. Let us know on the text line, 512-447-3776. Before we get back to the text line, we should say Texas did make a hiring move yesterday. They brought back Chris Gilbert. Chris Gilbert was a guy that was brought in by Sark at the very beginning of his run at Texas. He was the director of high school relations when he was with Texas. He left in December of 2022, went to North Texas. He was an assistant head coach and tight ends coach, went to North Texas. I believe the thought is that he wanted to go coaching more. He was doing recruiting more and not in the coaching realm. So he took an opportunity to go coaching a little bit more. Went to North Texas, was there for a little bit. Texas and Sark are apparently very high on Chris Gilbert. They respect him and like his mind, like his recruiting, like all of that. So they made an offer to bring him back. He is now the special assistant to the head coach. So it is now off the field again, but he does get to work some as a coach a little bit more. He'll be back in the recruiting department as well. And we know, I'm sure he learned, he, makes those connections, stayed in Texas, made the high schools connections. But the difference of recruiting and the budgets and everything between North Texas and Texas, I'm sure he'll be glad at some of the benefits of trying to recruit and do things in Texas. Also, we can say that MLB, the spring training started. When I looked earlier at the score, I'll see if I can pull it up again. It was the Dodgers and the Padres starting spring training games off. The Rangers start tomorrow, the Astros on Saturday. But when I looked earlier, it was 8-0 in the bottom of the first. It is now 14-1 in the bottom of the ninth. The Dodgers are winning that game. So they're not the best games in spring training, but you can go watch some baseball if you want to watch some baseball. That is happening now. But I thought since we're getting into spring training, some things to look out for. And, we'll keep talking about it when these stories actually come through. But I thought since they're starting, guys are going in, kind of the major storylines for both clubs right now of what they need to get done in spring training to make you feel like this team can go in for the Astros, get back to where they were winning a World Series, and for the Rangers to return and do what they did last season, winning a World Series. We'll start off with the Astros. And really the biggest thing for the Astros in this spring training is to stabilize that pitching staff. They have a number of good pitchers on that staff, but we know at the end of the season last year, we saw some issues with some of the guys that the pitch clock and kind of some of the changes there really threw them off. They were starting to get flustered. They were starting, when things went downhill for our Astros pitchers, they went downhill fast. That's something that they need to work on and see if you get your guys back on the winning track, back to feeling good. If you feel you have that rotation, you have guys like Luis Garcia and Lance McCullers that are still out. They're going to be out till about mid-season. I know Lance McCullers being out is no surprise to anybody. He has been a guy that we know has some talent, but he's just been injured so much. And Luis Garcia, if you know, was a rockabye baby pitcher. And then with the pitch clock, had to get rid of that to get the ball out a little bit quicker. So those guys are going to be out for a little bit, but they still have a lot of good pitching coming into spring training. Justin Verlander coming off a surgery. Should be ready during spring training, beginning of the season. But you have Verlander. If he can get back into it, he knows what he's doing to get back into it. But Framber Valdez, can he go back to being the ace pitcher that he was the beginning of last year and the year before? Christian Javier, another young guy that has done really well but had some struggles. Jose Urquidy falls into that group. All those guys, can you get those guys performing at a really high level at the beginning of the season? Get that pitching staff up to where you want it to be because you're spending the money now. Those are all guys who are really cheap. You've kept a lot of those, paying them a little bit more. So you want to make sure that those guys are going to be pitching a part of a good rotation. And then a couple of young guys you want to look out for. JP France is a guy who came up last season, did well. Can he earn a spot in the rotation, or does he go back to minors? Does he enter the bullpen? It's kind of a long relief guy. What does JP France do after an offseason coming in where he made it up to the MLB level? What does he look like in spring training? And Hunter Brown, a guy that a lot of people were looking for to kind of see if he could get up his mechanics. He really emulates a lot of what Verlander does. He gets to work with Verlander in spring training now and kind of go through the process of getting ready for his season, see if he can get himself and take that next step this season to be a next level pitcher for the Astros. But Hunter Brown, definitely somebody for the Astros that you're going to be looking at in spring training to see if he's going to get his stuff up to par for the beginning of the season. If he takes that next step as a pitcher, a lot of things. And in spring training, you have to keep in mind with pitching as well with hitting. They are going to be working on a few things as well. So you can't take everything just for stats in spring training. You kind of have to take some things with a grain of salt because we know they're going to be their pitching could be, okay, well, we just want to work on this one pitch. So you're going to throw it a lot. And some guys are going to hit off you. We don't really care. Just like they do in the minor leagues. Those numbers are not always perfectly right. But a guy like Hunter Brown, JP France, you want to see their stuff is working well. You want to hear those reports that they're looking really good. For the Rangers, the real question is, can they find some more young help and solid veterans? The Rangers have had a really weird offseason. They spent a ton of money the last two off seasons, brought in a lot of people. They win the World Series, and you'd think that maybe they would go out again and spend more money. And maybe this team would say, we're going for it all. We want to win again. Like they didn't go out. The Astros went out and brought in Josh Hader. They had Ryan Presley, who was one of the top closers. He's now a setup guy, and Josh Hader is now your closer. So they went out and did that. The Rangers were in the bidding for that man too to help solidify their bullpen that had issues last season. They didn't go for that. They haven't spent a lot of money. That's partially because their television rights deal with Bally Sports and all of those, like a lot of teams had this issue. Those were supposed to be getting a lot of money. Basically, all those places declared bankruptcy. So there was some money that payroll, wasn't coming in the same way that they thought it was. The budget didn't look right because of money that they were expecting to get from their local TV deal wasn't coming in. So they couldn't go out and spend a bunch more money before, making sure their local TV deal rights and that money was going to be coming in. So it's a little awkward of an offseason for the Rangers. However, they are a really good team. Now, can the guys like Josh Young and Evan Carter, those guys, take another step this season, get even better? The young guys, can they perform at the same level they played at last year? We know that, if Marcus Semien can improve a little bit, he was good at points, but not as good as he needed to be. Can he go? And then that young bat, Wyatt Langford, he's a fourth-ranked prospect in basically all of baseball right now. He's really young, hasn't played a lot of minor league baseball, but he is a guy that is going to be someone to watch in spring training because the Rangers just don't have a ton of depth because they couldn't bring in a couple more guys. If you get some more youth, which is what really, that took the Rangers to the next level. They brought in the big money, but the young guys in that farm system are what got the Rangers the World Series. Well, maybe you could get a little bit more help. Wyatt Langford is a guy to watch for Rangers baseball as you go into this spring training. If he has a big one playing with the big boys, a day one call-up seems a little lofty for Wyatt Langford, but you never know. There's when you're the Rangers right now and you weren't able to go out and spend the money the way you wanted to, it's one of the reasons why there still are top free agents out there, I think, is because the money kind of didn't end up right because of those local TV rights deals for several MLB teams. But if that gets settled, they are able to figure out that payroll. They may still try and bring somebody else into the fold. But those young guys for the Rangers, they need to see that. They also brought in a bunch of veteran pitching, hoping to find a few guys that are going to be able to fit into that rotation, fit into the pitching staff. We know they have a couple guys, DeGrom and Scherzer, who are both going to be out until probably mid-season. Then those guys will both come back in, but you got to make that gap and not lose space in a division with a good Mariners team, with the Angels, who knows what they'll do with Ohtani gone, but Trout's still there. You have the A's, who are tanking to go to Vegas, but maybe they'll spend money now. Doubt it. And then, of course, the Astros and Rangers are going to be battling for that top position all season long. We know that, along with Seattle. So if you have both those teams, the Astros and the Rangers battling, and then you throw in Seattle, you can't really get behind early because you're waiting for guys to come back. So that young playing and those veteran pitchers going to be big, looking to see what they do in the spring training. Rangers first game tomorrow for spring training, and then the Astros will start up on Saturday for their first spring training game. Let's get back to text line 512-447-3776, whatever you guys want to talk about. If you want to talk about any of that, or a big fat poll today, who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? Extra credit if you tell me what pick and what team drafts them. If you can tell me those, that's extra credit for you there on the text line. I do grade everybody. At the end of the show, I grade them. No one sees them, but I grade everybody. Back on the text line, our Dub, he's with me. Embrace a margarita. It's National Margarita Day. It's 40 minutes left in the show. I'm like 45 minutes away from a margarita, maybe more. I don't know if the traffic's going to give me the break to get to the margaritas that quick. But I'm right there with you. I'm with you. Embrace the margarita, R-Dub. Text says, just like Wrestling Guy, we're deep diving on all the combine, NBA, mock drafts, basketball. Let's hear more about UT baseball. It's like the redheaded stepchild. I can tell you there's a difference. College baseball is a little bit harder to do a ton of research on in the offseason. Plus, it's going on. I'm a basketball guy. I will follow basketball. If I wasn't doing this, I would follow basketball a ton. So I've followed it and covered it and done stuff for the last 20 years in basketball. So for me, I'm going to cover basketball a lot. And then for football, we're always going to talk football. That is kind of bread and butter for people here in Texas. And so we talk baseball. I will tell you personally, for me, as the season keeps going on and I get to watch this team play a little bit more, I've been watching their games. As we get a little bit further into the season, I see some trends for some guys. We'll talk more about Texas baseball. It's just hard to do the deep dive research on a lot of these guys and kind of what the team mentality is. But we'll keep it going. Trust me, we'll get into it. And as the season progresses in baseball, for Texas baseball, I'm watching the games. I'm trying to pick up some notes and get into it a little bit more. But I don't have necessarily the off-season prep done on that necessarily. So I'm trying because UT baseball, they can't be the redheaded stepchild because they win, man. They're a great program. So you can't, and also the fans for Texas baseball are the best. I love basketball. I love that. And, the Moody Center has improved the basketball format a ton. In football, we know you can pack out the DKR when this team's winning. But, man, that baseball fan base, y'all are the coolest fan base. It's just, occupy left field and now the Yeti Yard and all that cool stuff. There's so much cool stuff that's happening with the baseball fan base that I don't want to leave you guys. You're definitely not the redhead stepchild to me. I just know it's harder for me to cover that sometimes early in the season. So we'll keep going into it. And Texter says, do you remember when Adolis Garcia made the Astros his word I can't say on the radio? Look, do you remember when Jose Altuve did it 150 times? You get one and you get cocky over there. Yes, but I do remember. By the way, just for Rangers fans, and I know because I got this flack about the Cowboys too, and I don't care that much, but I want to tell you, I watched the Rangers game with Rangers fans. in the World Series. Last game of the series, I watched with them, and I was rooting for the Rangers. And there was a point in the game where things were not going as well. I walked outside by myself and watched the game outside by myself to help change the energy in the room, to help the Rangers, because I said, you know what? Maybe it's being an Astros fan in the room full of Rangers fans that is causing this. And when I walked outside, the Rangers rallied right after that and went ahead, and I just stayed out. And then people were talking to me in the breaks because during the game, everybody's got to be in there. I'll be out here. I'll separate myself for the good of the team. So I'm with you. I'm not a hater. There's not, I'm happy there's a rivalry. I know one of the few. I know Rangers fans hate the Astros. They hate them. As an Astros fan, I don't hate the Rangers. Maybe I will in 4 or 5 years when y'all keep being good. You got a good young team. But right now, no, I'm rooting for you because look, I'm a simple man. When my friends' teams win, the party is better. I prefer the party to be better. All right, I want to get to this in a little bit. There's not much because this is a thing about the Cowboys in free agency. We don't know what the Cowboys are going to be able to do in free agency until they make a few decisions about their salary cap. They're already over the cap. They're going to have to figure out some guys to get rid of. They're going to have to figure out some guys to clean up that staff. And if they're going to re-sign Dak Prescott and try and open up some money that way, restructure some guys. So we don't know how much money they actually have. We do know Jerry Jones said they're going all in. We do know that Mike McCarthy last season said we're going to run the ball more, and they didn't. So I think there's plans, and then there's what's reality. I don't think Mike McCarthy didn't want to run the ball more. They just didn't plan properly for it. So here's a couple names I want to throw out there for you guys for positions that are of need. And some of these positions we talked about in the draft, I think we'll start off with O-line. I think O-line is going to be in the draft. I think that's where you try to get guys. They're a little bit more inexpensive. You can go draft 2 or 3 offensive linemen in this draft if you're the Cowboys. You don't have a ton of holes where you really need guys, but you can kind of take some shots on some O-linemen, try and bring some youth into that room. Depending on if you bring back Biotish, I doubt you're going to bring back Tyron Smith, but if you do, then you need less of that. Maybe you only draft 2, but and maybe you draft those a little bit later. But a couple of guys that are out there, Robert Hunt is a guy, really good offensive lineman you may be able to go out there and get. Connor Williams, also an interesting name, left the Cowboys, goes to the Dolphins, plays really well for the Dolphins. He's got to stay healthy, but he's a guy who knows more of what the system is going to be for the Cowboys. No, you never can say never. Jerry may say that we need to go out and get somebody else. If Biotish is asking for too much, Connor Williams is out there. You may go out and try and get him back. Now, here's a name in Cowboys talk that I think you need to look at. I doubt you can get him, but if you can, man, this guy's going to want to get paid. And he's somebody that I would say would be near my top of my list of guys that I would say pay the high price for this guy and he will change your defense, is Patrick Queen from the Ravens. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He came out in a salary year, and he's going to want to get paid for it. But, man, did he play good for the Ravens last season. Bring him in with Mike Zimmer as that inside linebacker position and really shore up that inside linebacker part. Make it where Patrick Queen and Micah Parsons playing together, I think, could be a dynamic group of guys to be able to allow Micah Parsons to be the threat he is while Patrick Queen cleans stuff up on the side. You can also go defensive tackles. I know they said Chris Jones. I can't see them affording to take Chris Jones out of Kansas City and Kansas City letting him do that. Of course, if you can, that's your number one. You go get Chris Jones. Just don't see it happening. DJ Reader, though, somebody else, going to cost a pretty penny, but if you can, that's a guy who can take up a couple guys in the paint, in the middle of that O-line and really open up. He doesn't necessarily get the best pass rush all the time, but he's going to shore up that run defense and allow Micah Parsons to be the guy that you want him to be. And you go out in that secondary, Jalen Johnson. If you say we're not letting Stephon Gilmore go, we're going to have Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, and we want to get a guy out there who is a top cover corner that's not necessarily going to get the ball thrown his way a lot, so they throw it more at our ball hawks in Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs. Jalen Johnson from the Bears, interesting name to look at there, just to really make your secondary one where you're funneling the ball to your ball hawks. Could be an interesting one there. And then finally, we know the running back position, right? The running back position for the Cowboys is a position of need. The draft is a place you probably, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm drafting one and I'm signing one because I do want to run. They finished 14th last season in rushing. It's not the worst, but they needed to be top 5, top 10. They weren't. I think this offense works a ton better if you can run the ball. And the two names that are out there, I like the Derrick Henry name still. I know he's not fully there, but I think you can get 8, 9 games out of him until you get that rookie up to par, and then the rookie kind of takes over a little bit more, and a 1-2 punch of Derrick Henry and a rookie could be a fun look for the Cowboys this season. The Josh Jacob names is coming up a lot. I don't know if I love that fit for Mike McCarthy and Dak. I'm just not sure if I love it. I'm a big Josh Jacobs fan. I'm just not sure that fit culture-wise and chemistry-wise with that team, getting him in and getting to play at the highest level. He might be comfortable there, and I don't feel like Josh Jacobs is at his best when he's comfortable. I think he's his best when he's being pushed, and I don't know if the Cowboys organization is a place to do that to him and really push him. But who knows? We will see. But those are a couple of names to look out for in Cowboys free agency. If they go big and Jerry does go all in, there's just a few names. There's more. I'd love to hear who you think they should be going for on the text line. Send that one in, 512-447-3776. If I didn't name off someone that you say that should be their number one priority in the offseason, this free agent, send that name in to me as well for the Cowboys. All right. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back. We want to go behind the burnt orange curtain as well today. So let's take a quick break, and we'll come back, get back to the text line, get to a hook 'em up replay, and keep the sports complex rolling here on a Thursday here on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Back on the Sports Complex here on the Horn on Thursday afternoon. Text line's open 512-447-3776. If you have an opinion on who the top free agent the Cowboys need to go after this offseason, send that one in. Big fat poll of the day. Who will be the third Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? Send that one in as well. Anything else you want to talk about? Send that in. We've already had Texas baseball to talk about that. We've already had some wrestling. Want to talk about that? We'll go into whatever. We'll try and go into whatever. You know, I'm trying to get more into Texas baseball. And not get into it. I enjoy watching it, but learn and read and do all that. I'm trying, I promise. Let's go ahead and get to Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain with my man, Rod Babers. Weekday mornings, 6 to 11 here on the Horn. Hook 'em up with Ian Rob B. Let's do a little Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain on a Hook 'em Up replay here on the Sports Complex.
I want to get to these Lance Zierlein draft profiles. Now, for those who don't know, Lance Zierlein does radio down there in Houston, does a great job, but also is a draft analyst for NFL.com. And he famously, and these are real-time rankings that will change depending on the combine, pro days, individual workouts and interviews. So he'll adjust these all throughout the off season, all throughout the scouting season or the silly season, as you want to call it. But Lance Zierlein does really good work, and it's extensive. And he gives all the players a grade, ranks them regardless of position, just treats it like a big board, but also will rank them based on their position too. He gives them kind of a position grade, but also an all-around grade. And Lance Zierlein, the reason I think people like Lance Zierlein's rankings is because they don't always match up with the popular opinions from around college, the college scouting world or the NFL draft analysis. Because his individual grades, like I said, they change based on new information that he gets. Right now, he's got the two highest rated players in the entire draft as Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers, the receiver from LSU. Those are his two highest ranked players. And what's not, I'll tell you what, I saw something, I think it was, let me make sure I get the draft analyst's name correct. Oh, yeah, it's Matt Miller, actually. I'll take it back. It's Matt Miller, NFL draft scout. He said that he wouldn't be surprised if the top 3 players in this draft overall, like in terms of their just overall grade and on the big board, were wide receivers.
Yeah.
He said that would not be surprising to him.
Yeah, because I have heard a lot of people pushing for Malik Nabers. I mean, Marvin Harrison is just the established best receiver.
Yeah.
But people are going back and watching the Malik Nabers film now saying,
man.
This is nothing against Marvin Harrison, but, man, this is a dude here.
Would the third be – would that be Odunze?
Yes. Odunze would be the third. And I remember, I'll get the Daniel Jeremiah quote about Romeo Odunze, who basically claims, he's like, no, Romeo Odunze is a true wide receiver one. Like, he believes like that he's a true number one wide receiver for someone. And he actually said his favorite wide receiver in the draft, actually, it was, I believe it was Daniel Jeremiah said that was Romeo Odunze. His favorite. Didn't say it was the best. Just talking about his favorite wide receiver in the draft, maybe Romeo Odunze. So, yeah, I mean, they really, there are 3 wide receiver ones at the top of the draft. Anyway, getting to the Longhorns, like I said, so he's got Caleb Williams among his top 5 players. He's got Brock Bowers in that ranking too among his top 5 players. So my point in bringing it up is that his rankings aren't always, the same rankings as everybody else, but they do, like I said, they do change real time. They adjust, so they might end up looking more like everybody's rankings when we're done with the process. So he gives every player a grade, 5.6, anywhere in that range means he projects you to be an undrafted free agent or a practice squad guy. 5.9, he's got projected as an average backup that might play on special teams. If you get a 6.1 around there, he's a good backup who could become an eventual starter. So there is a method to his madness. He doesn't reveal the methodology, but he does give you the projections of what every grade is. 6.2 average starter, 6.4 good NFL starter. So let's talk about the Longhorns that he has ranked here really quickly. He's got Byron Murphy, top Longhorn on his draft scouting profiles with a 6.4 grade, 6.48 actually, and the 6.48 translates to basically a good NFL starter, but he also says there's some boom and bust ratio in that 6.5, right? So he says 6.48, top D tackle on the board is Byron Murphy. He's got the second D tackle on his board, and also the second highest ranked Longhorn as T'Vondre Sweat. He's a 6.40 in his score. He's got Jonathan Brooks as the number 1 running back on the board, which is, he's got his number 1 running back, but also he's got him as the 3rd highest graded Longhorn overall. Jay Brooks, no matter where I look, Matt Miller, matter of fact, Matt Miller just put out another tweet about Jonathan Brooks, where he basically said that Jonathan Brooks, the number one running back on his board, even though that he did not expect that. Basically, he didn't expect him to be the number one running back. Mel Kiper, Pro Football Focus, Daniel Jeremiah, all still have Jay Brooks as the top running back, even after the injuries. Says a lot about Jay Brooks' film and the way teams feel about him. JT Sanders and Jay Brooks have the same grade. Tight end number 2 overall on his big board is JT Sanders. They both had a 6.38, so he's got JT Sanders, the 4th highest rated Longhorn, and he's got A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy down on terms of his rankings with the Longhorns. He's got A.D. Mitchell as the 7th wide receiver, which is going to push him back toward the end of the first round, maybe into the second round. Remember, Matt Miller loves him some Xavier Worthy, thinks he's underrated, and he's got Xavier Worthy actually in his first round of his mock draft. So he's got Xavier Worthy mocked in the first round, got A.D. Mitchell mocked in the second round. Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft has got A.D. Mitchell in the first round, and he's got Xavier Worthy outside of the first round. So the opinions vary on these wide receivers. Mel Kiper was asked what wide receivers are the most underrated of this deep wide receiving crop, and he said the Texas guys are the most underrated. And he had A.D. Mitchell in the first round of his mock draft. So it varies. I mean, the wide receivers are deep position. All depends on what you emphasize and what you covet in a wide receiver in terms of the skill set. He's got Christian Jones ranked at a 5.9, which puts him at an average backup or maybe a guy that can play special teams. And he's got Ryan Watts, Jalen Ford, round 5.8 overall as a prospect. He even ranked Jordan Whittington 5.6. He has Jordan Whittington ranked. Did not rank Keelan Robinson, but he's got 10 of the 11 prospects for Texas ranked. And the way it's looking, he even projects the way that his big board setups that T'Vondre Sweat actually could end up being a first round pick too. The way it's set up, because he's got him being the second D tackle on the board, and he's got him as a 6.4 grade overall. Remember, Jim Nagy had his tweet, a thread earlier this week, saying T'Vondre Sweat should not drop out of the first round. And if that is the case, then, and Lance Zierlein is right, it looks like T'Vondre Sweat actually may be trending toward being the back of the first round pick. We know he can be an early second round pick, but right now some people have him rising up draft boards to be a first round guy too. So there you go. That's Lance Zierlein's draft profile. They'll change real time, and he adjusts them almost weekly with new information. That's what I really like about ranking. This is not where they are going to be by the time they get to the draft. This will be totally different, and you could have some Longhorns who are increasing their draft stock.
Yeah, good stuff. And Lance, of course, Lance's father was a long-time offensive line coach in the National Football League.
Lance does good work, man.
And he actually grades them like an NFL scout would, right?
He does.
That's how the teams build their big board.
Yes.
And they give them grades, and that grade will move from combine and then interviews, medicals, all those things. But as it stands now, that's really based on film, right? The film from the seasons that you've seen. So, but sure, I mean that's why it's good stuff, because that's how they'll build their board out and position by position. All right, so speaking of first round picks, right? I mentioned this earlier, but it's just fascinating to look at the history of Texas football, and you went through the numbers of how many first round draft picks. I mentioned the Longhorns have never had a tight end drafted in the first round, never one time.
That's wild.
JT Sanders, if he somehow snuck into the first round, would be the first ever Longhorn tight end.
It is a position though. Now I think we're starting to see more and more tight ends drafted early.
Sure.
But maybe it's trending that way. We'll see.
Because back in the day, tight end was tackle eligible. Essentially, it was just another offensive.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
But it also said Rob played at DBU, the position with the most first round picks, defensive back, 14.
I'm not surprised by
14 all time first round picks.
Even when Texas was bad, they was producing good DBs.
Most recent was Kenny Vaccaro in 15.
Yep.
Or 2013, he was 15th overall.
It's been a while actually. Then
first DBU graduate, or DBU defensive back to get drafted in the first round, Max Bumgarner in 1948.
How about that, man?
Gotta love that.
That's pretty good. Yeah, DBU baby.
So they've never had a tight end drafted. They've only had 2 quarterbacks. The only other position that is as thin is center and guard, as far as first-round draft picks, which, centers and guards aren't first-round draft picks that often.
Exactly.
That's not a premium position. But quarterbacks are. Texas has had 2 all-time, Vince Young in 2006 and Bobby Lane in 1948.
Oh.
And this is where
Bobby Lane.
You like the trajectory Sark has, because literally you talk to the top personnel in the NFL. The Longhorns could have their next two quarterbacks go high in the first round.
Yes.
Because Quinn Ewers could be 1-1 overall based on the season he has. Certainly will be a top 10 consideration next year.
Yep.
And we know the name Arch Manning. If he plays at Texas, he's going to be a high pick.
Done deal.
Done deal.
And they have right now, you could argue, the best quarterback room in the country right now.
Yeah.
We're looking at what's behind Quinn Ewers and what Quinn Ewers is as a returning starter. That would be historic for Sark. Hell, Sark, if he ends up getting 3 players drafted in the first round, Texas hadn't had 3 players drafted in the first round since 1980.
I know.
And
next year with Quinn and Kelvin Banks,
you definitely have.
They could have 2 top 10s.
Yep, and if Isaiah Bunn works out the way they think, he projects as a guy that could be a top wide receiver drafted, and that would put you in the first round. If you're anywhere in the top 5 wide receivers coming out.
And we'll see.
Yeah.
We will certainly follow it here on Hook 'em Up. As far as positions with the most first-round picks, running back 5.
Oh, yeah, because all of them are elite. Man, if Jonathan Brooks didn't get hurt, he would have been in that category too. If Jonathan Brooks didn't get hurt, he would have been a first-round guy.
That would have been the 6th.
Yeah.
But Bijan, Cedric Benson, Ricky Williams, Eric Metcalf, Earl Campbell.
Ooh.
4 wide receivers all time. Roy Williams, Johnny Lamb Jones, Meenan Schreier.
Way back.
1956.
Damn.
And the great Hub Bechtel.
Wow.
So back in 1947.
Yeah, it's about that time for wide receiver again. I didn't realize that was such a long time from Roy Williams to the one prior to him.
Yeah, Lamb Jones, there was a 24-year gap between Lamb Jones and Roy Williams, and there haven't been one
since
Roy.
Now you're looking at, basically another 20-something year gap, right? What was Roy, 2004?
20 years.
Yeah, so 20 years. Wow.
Where was Jermichael Finley drafted? Because we were talking about the lack of – okay.
Yeah, he was like 2nd or 3rd round. Jordan Shipley, I think, was a 3rd round.
That's what's amazing is I'm such a draft nerd, and Rod, you were drafted one time, so you've got lots of legs up on me on that. You were a draft pick. If we get so caught up in the first round, but if you're one of the top 90 players drafted in your draft, that's pretty damn good.
That's really damn good.
I mean, you're pretty much a badass.
Oh man.
I mean, this is college football, man.
Yep.
But we all focus on the 32 best. I mean. Every teams are drafting for need, teams are drafting for position, teams are drafting premium positions over. Yeah. If you get drafted in the first 90 picks, you're a badass.
Usually that top 100 is kind of the cutoff because, the first 3 rounds, you'll get close there. And when you get those supplemental picks, right, and supplemental draft, so you usually get close to 100 in those first 3 rounds. I mean, that's when you do feel like, oh, man, I actually accomplished
organizations
something.
That are good are planning on their top 3 picks to be starters. You're looking to draft starting players in your first 3 picks.
Yep.
I mean, if you're in the top 10 of the first round, you're looking to draft a Hall of Fame player. You're Pro Bowlers. You're looking for foundational players.
Yep, all-time greats.
Which is why if you're a Texans fan last year, right, you draft C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. You got 2 foundational players.
Yep.
At premium positions for the next decade for your organization. But, once you get past the premium guys, you're looking for starters, looking for quality. And so if you're in the first 90 picks, man, you're a dude.
And the Texas Longhorns are probably you look at 90 picks.
Oh,
they might have 6 or 7. They might have
Christian
7
Jones
guys in the top.
That.
He is right now sneaking in. A lot of people got him rising up too. And we don't know about Jalen Ford. Jalen Ford at that off-ball linebacker position.
He needs a good combine.
He needs a good combine. I don't expect he'll have one. He's not a physical freak, but I think when people go back to the film for 2022, that his draft stock will rise too. I don't know if he'll make it into that top 100 guys. But man, right now it looks like at least they'll get 6 guys in that top 100.
Good stuff there. Hook 'em Up with Ian Rod B. Getting you a little draft talk as we're getting our big fat poll today. Who will be the 3rd Longhorn drafted in the NFL draft? You can send that in 512-447-3776. If you think you know who the top free agent target for the Cowboys should be this offseason, send that one in to 512-447-3776. We'll come back, get to the wrap up those texts, and wrap up the show on the other side here on the Sports Complex in the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hey guys, it's Patrick Davis here, and if you're craving some fantasy sports action, do what I do and take every sporting event to the next level with Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. You know, I love watching basketball all the time. I talk about it all the time on the show. Now with Prize Picks, I can make every game matter. So if I'm watching a game on League Pass or watching some other Big 12 action, doesn't matter. I can go in. All I got to do, pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. That's it. It's that simple. And I get a huge selection of players, sports, stats that I can pick from. Also, there's no sharks, competitive leagues, any of that where you're competing with guys who do this for a living. No, it's you and Prize Picks. That's what it makes it great. I love the easy gameplay. There's quick withdrawals. Huge selection of player and stat options. I've told you about that. And no matter what game you're into, basketball, hockey, soccer, tennis, e-gaming, it's all on there. Prize Picks has a game for you. Right now, though, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code HORN. That's code HORN on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Do it today. Enjoy your weekend with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's just that easy. All right, wrapping things up here. Appreciate everybody playing along. Got a couple more texts. Jimmy the Gringo says, main reason I listen to your show is for the love of basketball. As far as the big fat polar bay, sweat to the Las Vegas Raiders with the 44th pick. I like that, Jimmy. Specificity. There we go. Appreciate that. I do appreciate it. Chan says he liked the song too. Some Commodores, some Yacht Rock Commodores. Talk about Vic Schaefer. The man rocks. The man don't play around. He does not play around. I can tell you from experience. Based on individual team needs and some pretty favorable draft grades, it's finally not impossible that we have 3 go in the first round. I agree with that. Random texter 69. And yes, Brady going 199 is always crazy. We'll be back tomorrow. Get you more coverage. Enjoy a margarita. Enjoy your night out. But remember, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean. See you right back here tomorrow for more from the Sports Complex.